Alongside the processes and actions of genocide, we see the reaction from the victims, witnesses, and international organizations. From propaganda created by perpetrators ensuring societal goals are met, to artistic cries for change made by activists in response to said genocide. We see posters, slogans, banners, and flags, graffiti, symbols, film, and radio, all used in multiple ways by multiple people to reach different goals. In a way, it's a battle in its own right, one where both sides use media as a weapon. Media used in the context of genocide acts as a reflection of the importance of art and how said art impacts the ways that a society reacts to media. Before a genocide is actually committed, several signs allude to the process of it occurring. We can see these signs through the 10 stages of genocide made by Dr. Gregory H. Stanton. Extermination is the ninth stage of genocide and marks the point in which mass killings can be legally defined as, well, a genocide. And while the process should never be viewed as strictly linear, it is obviously clear that the earlier stages take place far before the killings even begin. The first stage of genocide, for example, is classification, in which cultural diversity is weaponized by perpetrators as a way to isolate a group of people from the rest of society. In Rwanda, we see this stage of genocide unfold in the form of identification cards, in which Belgian colonial rulers further divided the Hutu and Tutsi groups through physical characteristics and required legal documents. They used media in the form of ID to document every individual's ethnicity, defining their social status and dividing them up socially. The Nazi regime, even prior to the implementation of the final solution, provided one of history's most recognizable examples of media being used as tools for genocide. Again, we see the usage of documentation implemented in the form of papers, in which Jewish individuals were classified and isolated as different from others. Jewish-owned businesses were marked and targeted with graffiti, making cultural and religious identity further divided from society in Germany. From the perpetrator's perspective, we can see how media was used both to influence how different communities within a society view each other and how documentation was used to highlight their differences, creating further divide. It's all a meticulous process for the sake of dehumanizing a group, another stage defined on the 10 stages of genocide. The key takeaway in this instance being how media and documentation is not only created in reaction and opposition of a genocide, but for the sake of committing one, by the perpetrators themselves in the form of manipulation and propaganda. This takeaway generally highlights and emphasizes again the importance of art and media in influencing a society in general during the processes of a genocide. While media continues to be used for the process of supporting genocidal acts, reactions from both inside and outside of a nation undergoing genocide grow more prevalent and visible as time goes on. In the early 1930s of Soviet rule over Ukraine, we see an example of documentation through the form of journalism. Well-known reporters such as then-famous Walter Duranty, known for winning the Pulitzer Prize for journalism in Soviet Russia, and now more widely recognized journalist Gareth Jones for his efforts in uncovering the denied famine and genocide undergone in Ukraine, serve as historical artifacts in today's context on how mass killings were silenced during the Holodomor. The two reporters act as real-life character foil, showing similarities in their reporting of the same issue, direct interaction with one another, but differing approaches and perspectives when it comes to journalism and how they approach the issues in Ukraine. The two highlight, in a sense, a concept of the universe of obligations, in which the two individuals make actions based upon what they prioritize morally, ethically, and idealistically in their lives. For Jones, his biggest priority was uncovering the truth. His universe of obligations placed getting real witness reports from the victims of the famine above his own life, proven so when he made the decision to escape from the supervision of his tour guide as he jumped from a moving train. Through Jones, we get to see real artifacts directly referencing and serving as evidence of the Holodomor's existence, and the actual witness reports to the lifestyles and habits of farmers in the communities affected as they undergo the actions of the Holodomor. For Duranty, his perspective on the Holodomor was to not view it as a major crisis at all. Given his ideal living circumstances in Moscow, Duranty lived a luxurious life with a career superior advantage through means of close interaction with big figures like Stalin. It was clear that he held strong inclined bias to supporting the Soviets' desire to cover up the Holodomor, making reports that often downplayed the actual actions undergoing in Ukraine, using language such as malnutrition or deaths from disease, as opposed to directly mentioning famine or genocide, even going out of the way to render and downplay Jones's reports on the Holodomor for the sake of maintaining his and the state's image. Through Duranty, we hold artifacts of the real inclined bias reporters and nations have to maintaining their public images. We see the techniques used during a genocide to silence or soften the actions undergoing to prevent further international reaction. While media created during a genocide often serves as evidence of atrocities occurring in real time, Media created after the genocide takes on a different role. Rather than documenting events as they unfold, literature, art, and film become tools for preserving memory, educating future generations, and preventing similar atrocities from occurring again. The Pianist, based on the experiences of Vladek Spielman during the Holocaust, allows audiences to witness the gradual dismantling of a community through the perspective of a Jewish individual. Rather than presenting genocide through numbers and historical summaries, the film demonstrates the human consequences of discrimination, deportation, and eventually the mass killing. Works such as The Pianist continue to be used in educational settings, like genocide studies, for example, because they provide perspectives that traditional historical records alone cannot fully convey to students and younger audiences. The documentation left behind by victims, witnesses, journalists, and artists contribute to efforts aimed at preventing future genocides. Following the Holocaust and other mass atrocities of the 20th century, the international community increasingly recognized the need for legal definitions and protections against genocide. This resulted in the United Nations Conventions on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide in 1948. All existing forms of media serve as documented artifacts of survivor testimonies, diaries, and reports preserved throughout and after these events, which provided evidence of the consequences of genocide and helped ensure that such atrocities could not simply be denied or forgotten. When examining media across the pre, during, and post stages of genocide, a common pattern emerges. Before genocide, media can be used to divide populations and spread propaganda. During a genocide, media can be used to document, expose, and conceal, combating and conflicting with that propaganda. After a genocide, media can become a tool as a form of reconciliation in the form of remembrance, education, and later preservation and prevention. Together, these artifacts reveal not only the immense human costs of genocide, but also the power of media itself. Literature, art, and film shape how societies understand genocide, how they respond to it, and remember it long after the violence is ended. That is my video essay. Thank you for watching.